now is people in extracurricular activities and sports. A lot of schools have started drug testing students who drive to school, and that hasn't been cleared constitutionally. It might not be the greatest case to bring, and then there's also students in co-curricular activities where they're pushing back. And at the last ONDC CP Summit, they said, they really encourage schools to drug test all their students. It would probably, it's definitely not cleared legally, but they're egging on. They want that lawsuit. They want to be able to do that. So that's kind of what's out there. That there are efforts to curtail this. In California, in 2004, the Drug Policy Alliance ran a bill sponsored by Senator John Vasconcellos that would put significant restrictions on drug testing, only allowing it for suspicion-based testing and a voluntary program where the results would only go to parents. That was supported by the California PTA, which has more than 1 million members, and it passed the Senate, it passed the Assembly, and it went to the governor, and he vetoed it largely upon the request of George Bush, his good friend. So we're hoping to run that again in the future, and get initiatives like that. Recently in Rhode Island, the Department of Education banned abstinence-only sex education. So we're hoping for that kind of bans with drug testing. And so I'm just going to wrap up now because I know we're approaching the end of our time. But this is a really important issue. Also because what students are doing is that at a very young age, they're getting students used to foregoing their rights. They're raising a generation where they say, they promote it as, students have to get used to this because of workplace drug testing and drug testing in the military. And so they're really raising a generation that are they're trying to make them docile to these kind of drug war tactics where their rights are being eroded. And so it's really important to be pushing back. If we have just 1 more minute, I want to read to you from a booklet that our good friend Robert DuPont, who also has a drug testing company, as was said earlier, he has a booklet called Drug Testing in Schools, Guidelines for Effective Use, which is basically promoting drug testing in schools. And it just kind of shows that we are making inroads. We're really annoying them. They know we're out there. He says, in his booklet, he says, a recent letter sent to every school district and accompanied by the Drug Policy Alliance, a well-funded drug use advocacy group that promotes the legalization of drugs and promotes safe use of drugs for teenagers, states that student drug testing for students fosters an environment of suspicion and disrupts young people. The Alliance claims that student drug testing places an added stress on students and pushes them further into the margins where they do not engage in activities. Then he tries to refute these points. But it just really shows we are pushing back, we're really annoying them, they're scared, they know that we're out there giving information, and we're going to be continuing to push back. So we have lots of copies of the booklet out on the DPA table, which is actually right outside of the conference room, so please pick one up, learn more about it. If you hear someone that you know in school, comes up in their school, it is popping up around the country, including in California. So please be aware, and if the drug czar comes to your community, I hope you'll join us. Thank you.
Let's hear it once again for Paul and everyone from Louisville. All this really came out. Oh, that was a depressing panel. Don't you guys have any jokes or anything? I don't know. God. Okay, well, I think it's all pretty clear to all of us with 60 companies coordinating the drug testing industry. Somebody's making bank. People who leave government, they go to the urine testing industry. Everyone needs to be tested. I remember Nancy Reagan saying, everyone that works for the U.S. government needs to be drug tested. Okay, why? Well, okay, it's kind of clear down the line. My personal drug dog story, thank God they don't know what they're doing. I was in Milan, and I had the hash. Oh. My friend had the cheese sandwich, and oh man, they spread out our luggage and took the dog over 3 times, and every time the dog went to the cheese sandwich. Oh God, okay, anyway, where's Land? Land, he's leaving back there in the back, our guy who's handling all the technology. Let's hear it for Land. He's been working hard getting all this stuff going. tapes and all the sound, everyone. Thank you very much for that. We're gonna, yeah, let's hear it for those guys. They've been just working hard all week. I think we're gonna invite our next set of panelists to come up. We'll just take a minute or two break to let people get settled in, and we'll get started again. People for the emerging clinical applications for cannabis, Dr. Lucido, Dr. Bierman, Dr. O'Connell, and Philippe Lucas from Canada. So we'll be back with you in just a minute as soon as we get those guys assembled. Thank you.
And she was able to move better. Torticollis is a spasm of the neck muscles. Again, under the relatively, Parkinson's. I had 4 cases of men in their 50s, and I was surprised by that because I always thought that happened to older people. And then I realized when I was in medical school, I thought 50s was old. Now that I'm 59, that's often when it does begin. And one of these 4 men was a chronic smoker since the 60s, and his wife told him to stop using it because they were in business together, and she thought it was affecting his business. He developed Parkinson's. So sent her 3 different neurologists because the first one said, oh, it's the cannabis that did it, and the other 2 said nonsense. It just was masking the movement disorder of Parkinson's. So he's back to using it, and of course it's still progressing, but probably slower than hopefully slower than it might have. One young man with severe diabetes was on dialysis and had glaucoma. I said, so what's your medical use? And he said, well, can't you see I'm blind? And he basically said, well, it doesn't cure blindness. I said, do you have light dark vision? And he says, yeah, well, do you want to protect that? I says, yeah. That was the reason I questioned him. He wasn't seeing anybody for his eyes, and he wanted me to write it for glaucoma. One of my requirements is they see somebody for the illness for which they use glaucoma. And I convinced him that if he values his light dark vision, he'll start seeing his doctor, and he did, and he's now, totally fine as far as, not totally fine, but as far as I'm concerned, he's medically legally fine. And he's using his medicine. That would be neuropathic pain and AIDS, chronic pain, let's see, harm reduction substitution. Alcoholism, I've used it on, it was a number of people that can tell me, and I believe them, that they can avoid their cocaine, they can avoid their opiates if they're addicts, and they can avoid their alcohol. I like to have other diagnoses because then how am I going to keep, how am I going to be able to justify it if they're not, haven't really stopped these things. But I've had a couple patients that have heartrending stories. A woman who's in her 30s, her father and her mother, these heartrending letters about how her life changed, and they didn't care for pot, but they, she stopped drinking. Another gentleman that's an ace car mechanic. Ford gave him commendations for being one of the best mechanics. And again, he stayed clean and sober for several years because of cannabis. ADHD, this is the one patient that I was investigated by the medical board, was a 16-year-old boy who was just shy of his 17th year. Severe ADHD, school failure, doing stupid things, getting into, high-speed chases with a stolen gun in the car. And the one thing that his friends that were getting him in trouble did was turn him on to pot. And within a year, he's telling his mother, my brain works. He's getting a heart-rending letter from the teacher in a special ed class saying they've elected him president of his class, kids, because he's helping them all the time. And so he was a slam dunk for me to say, I really don't, out of 3,000 people I've seen, there's probably only been 5 that have been minors. But this was a clear-cut one, and to me, and the medical board, of course, the home detention lady didn't think so when they found the pot pipe, and so she reported me to the medical board, some other things, anonymous reports. And they finally closed my investigation after a year. Now they know that I have some of the best standards. Let's see. Basic research stage, they talk about fever. Dr. McRee has described temperature reduction. I don't know if any studies have been done, but he thinks that there's a temperature reduction that happens with cannabis too. And then the NIH study, they did a study in the early 70s that they suppressed because, again, just like they found glaucoma is benefited, there was a study that somebody wanted to do to say, so that cops could look in your eyes and see whether you've been smoking pot. And they found it didn't do any harm, and there's nothing you can see but help your glaucoma. Same thing, and NIH did a study and it found that it suppressed brain tumors in, I can't remember if it was rats or what, that was suppressed. So in 1990, or no, about 2000 or so, these doctors in Madrid did the same study without knowing about the previous ones, showing that it suppressed tumors. And they were a little bit pissed when they found out that some of this had already been done, because they could have done all the money and time they spent on this research could have been done on the shoulders of the other stuff instead of repeating it.